Today, dear participants, we are delighted to welcome you to our new episode of the UmiUp Startup Experience program. This initiative was launched in collaboration with the Ukrainian Startup Foundation, Ministry of Digital Transformation, and R&D Center Winstars AI. The purpose of this program is to inform the startup community about how to better run their businesses, gain valuable and interesting advice from entrepreneurs, uncover insights, and possibly find like minded individuals. The goal is to help you to develop your products more effectively in the future. Today we have an interesting guest with us, Vitalii Diatlenko, co-founder at Uklon. Welcome.
Good day. It's a great pleasure to be here and to participate. I hope everyone will find this interesting and beneficial. As I already mentioned to Alexandra, everyone has their own journey, but there are similarities in the startup world. Mistakes and challenges may vary, but leveraging the experiences of others can sometimes make these hurdles easier to overcome.
I couldn't agree more with Vitaly. That's exactly why we're here today to hear your story. Let me explain a bit more about how today's meeting will unfold. Our interview will be divided into three main parts. The first part will consist of the fundamental questions we ask all for our guests, helping us get to know you better. Let's begin. The first question, which is the same for everyone, could you tell us how the idea of creating your business came about and how did you start?
I probably won't delve too deeply into the name and everything, but I'd like to say that any idea today can potentially become a game changer. Uklon began its journey at a time when only traditional taxis existed. If you remember when they operated by phone calls, or there were what we called freelancers, often near train station, that was back in 2010. It feels like a lifetime ago. Online technologies were just starting to make their presence felt in our lives. Social media was emerging, and people were beginning to actively use search engines. iPhones were already starting to appear in Ukraine. I believe they were introduced 2 years prior and had started to make their way here. At the time, we were working in the field of automating service operations. It became clear that traditional services operated inefficiently and slowly. There was a significant problem for users. First, they had to make a phone call, which many disliked, and second, they had to talk. In reality, people often don't enjoy talking to each other. That's a proven fact. It's simply easier to do this non-verbally. We validated our hypothesis and confirmed that the process of calling by phone is generally inconvenient for users. With our experience in the taxi industry and programming skills, we realized we could solve this problem programmatically. We created an interface where users could bypass the operator and connect directly with the driver who would fulfill their requests. Like any business, we aimed to solve an existing problem. We eliminated the need to call an operator, significantly speeding up the process of booking a car, reducing the time by tens of times. This step, removing a single stage in the seemingly traditional process of booking a car, was able to change the market and reshape how people perceive rides. What's now fashionably referred to as ride hailing fundamentally evolved from this approach. It's worth noting that every startup is about changing societal processes and solving specific problems. Unfortunately, not all startups become game changers, but my advice to everyone is to look for something that can change the game in your industry. It doesn't have to be something grand or massive at the start. Sometimes, like in our case, it's as simple as removing phone calls. Everything else followed over time, and it continues to evolve because we keep working on it.
Yes, that's truly an interesting story about how it all began. Indeed, if we think back, there was nothing like this before. I remember how I used to call for a taxi myself because my parents didn't like going it like this. They would always ask me, "Can you call them and book a taxi for me?" We don't like calling. Then I found some app that worked poorly. It allows you to book a taxi and even plotted the route, but it was clunky and unreliable. It was unfunctional. Nowadays, it's hard to imagine traditional well-known taxis without a good app. An app that works quickly, optimizes your route, and even tells you exactly how long it will take to reach your destination. But it took time to get to this point.
Yes, indeed, we are still not there completely. There are places in Ukraine where neither we nor our competitors operate due to the challenges of scaling our business to very small towns. These places still rely on dispatchers and phone calls. However, step by step, with the help of bots and apps, the process continues to evolve. Over time, this traditional model will likely disappear altogether.
Yes, I completely agree, but it's amazing that now you can call a taxi even when you're in different city. You can call one for your loved ones or friends or even use it to deliver a package. Previously, it was hard to imagine such a seamless and efficient process. That's why we're curious to hear. How did the idea come to you, and how many people were working on the development of the initial product at the time?
As I mentioned before, the idea addresses a specific problem. With my engineering skills and education, I wanted to give it a try. On one hand, we had business contacts with taxi services, we had warm connections and access to drivers. This was our supply side. As for demand, that is, the riders and those making orders, we built that ourselves. Initially, in the full time team, it was just me. When I needed help with administration or something else, I could pull in an engineer from the parent company we were collaborating with. That company was also working on automation solutions for taxi dispatch services. This setup lasted for quite a while. In the beginning, everything fit into a single website. It all ran on a workstation under a desk that hosted the site, database, and even the development studio all on one system. It's important to note that not everything needs to be perfect from the start. You don't need to over engineer, over backup, or jump straight into setting up sophisticated servers. To validate an idea, you need a minimally viable product. Don't try to build a spaceship right away because there is no guarantee it will take off or that you will even need everything you initially thought of.
Yes, I agree. That's a truly interesting story.
Regarding the team, we didn't scale it up for quite a long time. However, I want to emphasize why you should expand the team when necessary. On one hand, it accelerates development, but on the other, an entrepreneur must realize that there are problems they cannot solve on their own, and that's normal. No one can be an expert in everything. Gradually, you need to learn to identify your own limitations and delegate tasks. Bring in specialists who can strengthen your team, are smarter than you, and are experts in specific areas your team needs. Don't be afraid to search for and hire these people when the time comes. But until you recognize a problem or someone points it out to you, there is no need to rush to expand your staff unnecessarily. In general, learning to delegate is essential. It's not always easy and not always clear at first, but consultations, communication, and training can help you understand and motivate yourself to gradually let go of business processes and hand over certain areas of development to specialists who are more qualified in those specific fields.
Mhm, absolutely. Some of our speakers have shared similar stories, often noting that in the early stages of a company, the co founder or CEO handles 80% of the all tasks. They are the accountant, the marketer, developer, and administrator all at once. Was it the same for you?
In the beginning, yes, I managed contextual and non contextual advertising, distributed flyers, printed materials, and even acted as a designer, making adjustments myself whatever was needed. This approach works up to a certain point, but as soon as possible, you need to move away from it because it's not scalable. Unfortunately, humans are limited. No matter how much we learn, improve, or read about time management, books that promise to teach you how to do everything are misleading. It's impossible. You cannot become an expert in many different fields simultaneously, and that's perfectly fine. This is why societies exist, why we form teams. Gradually, you need to build a team around you and delegate
Mhm,
tasks.
I completely agree. Let's move on to the point where you managed to test your initial product. Once you implemented part of your idea, how quickly were you able to test it? Who did you test it on? What was the process like? And what mistakes did you encounter?
We managed to test the idea in about 2 months, I think. The main challenge was finding decent designers to create a website for us. That was our most significant investment, designing the website. Initially, Uklon, as the portal Ukraine Online, wasn't a ride hailing service but a platform. It was a portal with multiple vectors. As I mentioned earlier, we aimed a lot of things: news, transportation, ride hailing, and many other experiments. However, we quickly implemented things because we could develop websites efficiently. The first adopters of our product were our family and the people we worked with. The drivers were provided by the owners of traditional taxi services, classic old school gentlemen. I still remember meeting the director of one of these taxi companies for the first time. A man with a Cuban cigar and crocodile shoes. The owner had no objections to his drivers handling our orders. Initially, the main goal was to launch a working product, and we succeeded in that. However, we didn't have any tools to influence the drivers. They didn't understand where these orders were coming from, who to appeal to, or who to communicate with. This led to quality issues, maybe with mapping accuracy, for example, but that's an ongoing process. It was a challenge then, and it still can be today, and that's normal as things evolve. Gradually, though, other issues started to appear as well. For example, our servers would sometimes go offline. There was a time when the cleaning staff accidentally turned off the server, or we'd get overwhelmed with requests and crash. These weren't critical problems, though they could be solved step by step. At the very least, we put a sticker on the computer saying, "Do not turn it off during cleaning."
Exactly. And big things often start with small details. There is nothing more to say there. How did the passengers respond to the ability to book taxis online?
We didn't conduct the kinds of in depth analysis that our teams use today, like customer journey mapping, NPS surveys, or quality methodology assessments. Back then, we relied on feedback from users we personally knew to understand what they liked or didn't like. Primarily, our product solved the problem we had identified. It eliminated the need to speak with an operator. That alone was a massive advantage that made up for many of the product's initial shortcomings. Our first customers gave us significant trust and allowed us time to address the issues that inevitably arose. And they did arise. That's normal. However, since the core problem was being solved, we could address things like quality, speed, and UI gradually, rather than all at once. For this, we are incredibly grateful to them. Interestingly, more than half of the first thousand users are still with us today. While some statistics shifted after the full scale invasion, many of these early adopters remained loyal, gave valuable feedback, and used our service for years and still do.
Pioneers.
Yes, they are your most valuable users. You should take full advantage of them because they understand the product is young and new. The key is to keep asking them for feedback and incorporating their suggestions to improve your product's quality.
Yes, absolutely. What was a turning point for you when you transitioned from the just receiving a few orders to fully operating on a larger scale?
For us, the turning point was the arrival of international players on the Ukrainian market. This happened around 2014-15 when companies like Uber, Taxify, and Yandex entered simultaneously. These were well founded companies with strong marketing and solid products. At the time, we were primarily operating in Ukraine, mostly in Kiev and few other cities. It was challenging to adapt quickly when working alone because you tend to spread yourself thin. However, we believed it was a stroke of luck that competitors arrived on our market. Of course, it would have been better if we had entered their markets instead, but that's a different story. Nonetheless, we consider this a pivotal moment that helped us scale in terms of marketing, audience engagement, product development, and the use of diverse mechanisms to increase demand. expand supply, and grow our product line. This allowed us to keep developing our product over many years, while they also kept improving theirs. Sometimes they would observe what we were doing and scale similar features both in Ukraine and globally.
Yes, it's a tough job because whenever there is no competition, both sides are observing each other's new features and ideas. A good competitor might use those insights to come up with something innovative, but a basic competitor will just copy what's already been done. There are different types of competition, you could say, but in any case, it's a continuous process.
It is important to understand that observing is perfectly normal. You don't always have to copy something directly. From our experience, every idea involves significant time and effort from large teams, not just engineering teams, but analysts conducting surveys and tests. If we implement an idea, we invest in it, and others might reuse our ideas too. Ultimately, the market benefits from this. Sure, it can feel frustrating at times, but observing and adapting is a natural part of any industry or domain. There is no shame in it. Everyone works this way. Why reinvent the wheel?
Sometimes this process even gives a great boost to the product when you observe an existing feature that can improve the service, customer experience, or the app itself. You might use that knowledge to develop something that perfectly meets what the customer is looking for. It's a truly interesting process that always brings changes. And I believe those changes are often positive because, after all, your ultimate goal is to satisfy the customer's needs. That's why I think it's a good thing. To continue with our discussion, let's move on to the second stage of our interview. This is the stage where our startups have the opportunity to ask their questions. To get
Go ahead.
started, let's move on to this one. Um, how did you manage to scale your business across Ukraine? Today, it's nearly impossible to find a place where people don't know about your service or haven't used it at least once. How did you achieve this, and what's the current progress?
In our case, this was a gradual process rather than something that happened overnight. We didn't scale as aggressively as some of our international competitors. This was due to several factors. Firstly, scaling is a complex process, and to succeed, you need to learn from your mistakes. For us, there wasn't any prior experience to rely on, so our initial launches weren't always successful. For example, in Kharkiv, we had to relaunch several times. The launch in Odessa didn't take off smooth either. In Mykolaiv, locals were quite hostile. They slashed tires, broke windows, and strongly resisted our entry into the market. However, by adding locations one by one, we gradually developed a checklist for launching in new cities. It documented what needed to be done, what had been accomplished, and what hadn't worked. Over time, this checklist evolved into what we could call a playbook. With each new city, the playbook improved, becoming more refined as a process. The process involves a set of steps that you need to complete to successfully launch in a new city. Each time you refine it based on past experiences, aiming to plan the team, budget, and overall strategy as effectively as possible. The key is to create this plan, stick to it, and continuously adapt based on the lessons learned from previous launches. As I often say, even within Ukraine, different regions are quite distinct. The mentality, behaviors, and even promotional mechanics, such as how riders and drivers respond to promo codes, vary between central, western, and southern parts of Ukraine. Some people love promo codes, while others are indifferent to them. Western Ukraine might love promo codes, while regions like Odessa or Mykolaiv may not be as enthusiastic. You need to adapt and create different strategies because there are nuances in every region.
It's fascinating how, despite being one country united by a common culture and history, there are such differences in perception.
Absolutely. You just need to pay attention to these differences, respond to them, and use them to your advantage in a timely manner. If you notice something is not working, you have to figure out why.
Ivan is writing to us. Who doesn't love promo codes? How can you anyone not like discounts? That's so strange to us. Please explain. Discounts are always nice and exciting, so it's surprising to hear that there are regions where this isn't the case.
It's a statistically proven phenomenon. It's not something we made up. We see the percentage of utilization for different strategies. In some regions, there is nearly 100% utilization, though it's not always effective because where promo codes are popular, there is often a lot of fraud. In other regions, the use of promo codes exists, but users prioritize their primary needs from the service. They may not care much about whether there is a promo code or a challenge involved. It's a bonus that some people respond to, while others don't. Essentially, it works better in some places than in others.
Yes, I agree with you. For example, some of our startups are curious about this, especially since we're talking about bonuses. Not long ago, you introduced a new feature with mediators that users can earn through rides and then redeem across various services. Could you share how this has impacted your revenue and whether it's been profitable for you and your partners?
In terms of how it's affected our revenue, loyalty programs are a complex topic that requires a lot of careful consideration. It's one thing to offer discounts when you have a small customer base, but it's a completely different story when you are working with a large audience. Then it involves significant costs. Right now, considering our large audience, many products approach us with interesting proposals to join our loyalty program and exchange with mediators. Generally, we don't monetize this, selling spots in the program or anything like that. However, the team managing the loyalty program is considering the possibility of prioritizing certain partners or giving them more visibility. Currently, our loyalty program is primarily aimed at retention and encouraging our riders to take trips more frequently. Our core business remains transporting riders from point A to point B and deliveries. Everything else is an additional bonus that we continue to work on. However, if you plan to create a loyalty program, do the math. In our case, it didn't succeed on the first attempt because our marketing team had one set of calculations while the analysts came up with another. Overall, it can be a loss making initiative, While it's definitely beneficial and appealing to users, like someone in the chat said, who doesn't love promo codes? We are still a business and it needs to be mutually beneficial for both users and the company.
I completely agree with you. In any case, having a loyalty program is beneficial as it often helps attract a larger audience. When it first appears in a service you use, it piques your curiosity. You want to try it out, see how it works, and enjoy the perks, which subconsciously triggers emotional engagements. But how to sustain that engagement over time is a different question. Let's discuss how to keep people engaged longer through these kind of perks.
In our case, what do we offer? Initially, it was just mediators for trips, but gradually we've introduced categorization and expanded the choices of what mediators can be redeemed for various discounts, for example. We've also added more complexity with challenges and diverse options on the platform. On the one hand, challenges motivate riders to use the service more frequently to earn additional promo codes. On the other hand, as a business, we address our product needs by leveraging these challenges. For instance, if we want to promote a specific segment or feature, we incentivize its use through challenges. It's a win win. Drivers get more rides, we solve a business problem, and riders feel rewarded. That said, it's challenging to constantly come up with new mechanics. It's like a it's like a finite machine, but the team keeps working hard to innovate. Considering that we are continually trying to expand our product offerings, new products will soon be added to the platform. This will allow us to reuse the loyalty program in different ways and find new applications for mediators. Just yesterday, we launched a new feature, a collection system that will enable users to exchange mediators, convert them, and use them for things like drones. So that's another
That's
exciting
awesome. We
direction.
love to hear that. It's crucial, really. It's great that you're also supporting our armed forces. This is very important, and I believe that now everyone must unite and direct their efforts in every field, at least partly, towards strengthening our defense capabilities. This is vital. The harder we work, the sooner we might achieve a happy ending. Let's continue our conversation with an interesting question. AI is a hot topic these days. Artificial intelligence has taken over the world with new tools, programs, and services emerging every day. Does Uklon use AI? If so, for how long and how do you use it?
We've been using AI for quite a while. After I graduated from university more than a decade ago, I was already interested in exploring how to implement various concepts into a product. At the time, though, the practical applications and mechanism for implementation were quite limited, as it was mostly theoretical, but as technology advanced, these possibilities became a reality. In our product, we've been using AI in one form or another for about 8 or 9 years now. We've gradually adapted it for dynamic pricing because balancing supply and demand using static methods or heuristics is very challenging. AI naturally lent itself to this process. At first, it was not easy to implement. On the one hand, the technology itself was evolving, bringing new tools and practical applications. On the other, it became easier to recruit specialists to join the team and develop these technologies. I think we've done a pretty good job in this area. We use AI, adapt it, and train it daily as the amount of data grows continuously. But it's not just about search pricing. We have a robust product with a lot of data. We now have dedicated teams and departments, data science and data analytics, that process, enrich, and analyze our data to find new ways to reuse it. The overarching strategy and goal of these departments are to maximize the use of AI wherever it makes sense. This includes automating routine processes where it's unnecessary to assign a human to sit and forgive the term, waste time. Tasks where a human involvement isn't needed should be automated. However, where creative input is necessary, whether from operators, cartographers, or other specialists in our product, those cases should still be handled by humans. But even there, they can annotate, train the model, and return it for reuse. We are also exploring other interesting areas to use AI. We are currently processing feedback during evaluations. Rider feedback includes ratings, and while driver feedback doesn't include written reviews. There are numeric ratings that the system also reacts to. Initially, we tried processing feedback manually, but given the volume, it required an unreasonably large team, and the efficiency of manual work dropped. Now, prioritization and automation allow us to process feedback in a mostly automated mode. Human involvement is only needed for specific cases, depending on the feedback score, the complexity of the rider's or driver's issue, and other factors. The team addresses such situations directly when necessary. If we can replay and repurpose the data, we reuse it. Interestingly, we've also developed our own mapping system. We dreamed of creating something like Google Maps or even better, but we realized we don't need everything Google offers. We built routing and dispatching tools for drivers, couriers, and multi-point deliveries. Using the large volume of GPS data we receive, we learned to generate our own traffic information in cities, eliminating the need to pay external providers for access to this so-called golden data. For example, Google doesn't sell GPS tracks. You can sell your data to Google, but they won't give it back to you. So we taught ourselves to predict traffic patterns, which we now actively use for pre-scheduled rides. This helps us estimate prices more accurately, balance driver distribution, and assign them to areas where there is demand for pre-scheduled orders. Improving their pre-scheduled order process is not trivial. Drivers don't always show up on time, but through small tweaks, data analysis, and various incentive mechanisms, such as pricing strategies and prompts to direct drivers to specific areas, we made significant progress. Our team has set goals to improve both the quality and quantity of per-scheduled order fulfillment.
Please tell us, what trends do you see in the use of AI in the transport industry? Where do you think that trends are headed?
The concept of self-driving vehicles and autonomous taxis has been around for about 15 years. But in the past 2 3 years, particularly in China, it has become a reality. Unfortunately, in Ukraine, it's unlikely to arrive anytime soon. First, we need to learn how to build proper roads. Only then we can start implementing advanced AI systems. Globally, this trend is gaining popularity in many countries. In some places, there is even resistance, as AI is perceived to be taking away jobs. However, this is one of those processes where, if everything is properly set up, human involvement becomes unnecessary. If you can automate and train a machine to drive from point A to point B, respond to obstacles from all directions, then a driver is not needed. This is the direction we are heading in, and over time it will expand worldwide.
Yes, exactly. This topic has been talked about for a long time, but we haven't yet reached that perfect moment where we see excellent results. As we observed, autopilot technology still isn't perfectly refined. It has some technical nuances, and that's a fact. We haven't yet reached the point where it works flawlessly everywhere. We have a few questions. Could you tell us more about how you built marketing in your company? It's interesting because we often see your advertisement in other apps, banners, and flyers. You seem to cover a very broad range of channels. How did you achieve that? And perhaps you could share some advice for our startups on how to approach marketing in the early stages.
If we look at our story today versus where it started, initially it was just an AdWords account and some contextual advertising. Since we are an online service, we needed to promote ourselves online. I handled the AdWords account myself, and while it worked at some point, I felt it could perform better. That's when we started bringing in people who understood this area better than I did. Step by step, we moved from contextual advertising to publications and banners. At some point, we realized this area needed more investment. We brought in an expert who became the core of this department, someone who began building a team around themselves. It's not a quick process, but it's built around people. In our case, I believe there were two driving factors. One was competition, which pushed us to improve, and the other was clearly defined goals. Looking back now, I realize we should have started this process even earlier. These days, we set strategic objectives for each year, which define the direction we need to take. These goals include specific outcomes we aim to achieve with our product, such as metrics related to order volumes, quality, or the number of orders across different services. These figures are not just numbers or percentages, they are tangible goals that all departments contribute to achieving. To reach a specific goal, we align every team's efforts around these objectives. The marketing department works really closely with the development and legal departments. While each operates within its domain, they collaborate to achieve common goals. This, first of all, builds better connections within the organization. Secondly, it ensures that every employee, even those handling smaller
That's a
tasks,
great approach.
understand why they are doing it. It might seem obvious that everyone knows their purpose, but we've observed that when goals are clear, transparent, and consistent, not changing 10 times a year, it works well. Everyone understands the direction, purpose, and how they'll contribute to achieving these goals. Additionally, they are motivated to bring ideas forward on how to accomplish them. Tasks don't just flow from the top down but also from the bottom up. The ideal scenario is having a team fully engaged in achieving results. While the goals may originate with the owners or founders, the team is deeply involved because they demonstrate,
That's
implement,
fantastic.
and
One
achieve the
challenge for
outcomes.
startups, especially in the early stages, is that when the team is still relatively small, everyone is focused on their own tasks. It's crucial to share and align on the overarching vision or for what you want to achieve. As you grow and develop departments, if each department only focuses on its individual responsibilities, it's not enough. You lose a certain sense of shared purpose. But when there is a constant communication and collaboration, that's how you build something truly impactful, achieving great results because everyone is moving in the same direction.
Exactly. Additionally, one of the hacks that has worked for us is giving people the opportunity to influence the process, at least on an idea level, regarding what we'll do next. For years, we had an ideation committee or startup committee. What is it? Any employee can come forward and propose an idea to improve either their experience as part of organization or our product itself. It could be a process improvement or a product feature. We organize competitions, implement the best ideas, and reward contributors. For instance, an employee in the customer care department knows better than anyone else what they are missing when working with clients every day. They interact directly with the interface we've developed with the product teams. By allowing employees to point out inefficiencies and suggest improvements, we can fix those issues and enhance both internal and external processes. This approach works because it creates a fast feedback loop. People across all departments, whether they are pricing, a specialized currency team, or others, feel directly involved in the company's growth. They see that they are not just investing in external product development, but also in improving internal systems that support the service.
Exactly. How do you handle feedback? Nearly every trip generates feedback that riders can leave for their drivers. There are undoubtedly bad reviews from time to time. How do you process these reviews and how do you turn negative feedbacks into positive outcomes?
For a long time, as I mentioned earlier, we tried processing feedback manually. However, when the team handling this became the size of a few football teams, we realized we needed a better approach. As we grow rapidly in the volume of orders, we aim to collect as much feedback as possible because these ratings directly impact both the driver's performance and the overall quality of our product. Every rating left by a user is used in dispatching and influencing the driver's behavior. Drivers want to improve and we want to gather as many ratings as possible. Today, not all feedback is processed manually, not even close. Feedback is segmented in all the languages we collect. Keywords and triggers are identified and various priorities are set based on the context of the message. For instance, in unusual cases, like when a passenger loses something, say a wallet, and mentions it in a feedback, or if an unpleasant situation arises that requires a quick response, such feedback is escalated to the top. In such cases, humans step in to address the issue. Humans step in to address the issue. There are also processes that analyze patterns, such as 5 consecutive high ratings followed by one low rating, or 3 low ratings in a row. These patterns flag drivers for review, and the feedback is consolidated and drivers are highlighted for further action. We then address the feedback with the driver if they have received multiple negative reviews, especially with consistent themes like poor driving behavior, attitude, or specific problematic conduct. These cases are prioritized. Drivers are called in for discussions, deactivated, or retained depending on the situation. Drivers are coached on areas needing improvement, and those with persistent issues are closely monitored. The process is complex, ongoing, and long term, but it significantly impacts quality. In the service industry, where people interact directly with each other, problems are inevitable. The key is to respond to them promptly, sometimes by making product changes and other times by addressing people, whether they are riders or drivers. Riders are not always perfect either, and that also requires a response.
Exactly. Here is a common situation. Our startups are also curious about this question. How do you motivate your employees to come up with great new ideas for developing your product and, in general, to stay motivated about improving the product itself?
We are a large company today, but it was not always this way. We grew into this. There are several key elements. On one hand, there is compensation. Salary grading and compensation need to be planned properly. We monitor this closely, keeping tabs not only on platforms like Doe, but also through various agencies and services we subscribe to. Tracking salary ranges for specialists across all the relevant fields. An underpaid employee will always feel dissatisfied, and that's definitely not going to motivate them. That's one side of things. The other side is ideas. For smaller ideas, we might reward employees with gifts, but recently we've introduced something I find even more interesting. Internally, we've started a kind of startup incubator where any employee can pitch their idea. Ideally, these ideas should align with our ecosystem, but even if they are isolated from our current projects, we are open to hearing them. While none of these isolated ideas have turned into full-fledged startups yet, employees are encouraged to pitch. We help them by involving our strategy analysts to build a proper pitch and business plan, especially if the employee doesn't have prior experience in this area but wants to try. We offer resources, not necessarily money upfront, but access to partial time from developers, business analysts, or other team members to help them verify their idea. We also provide funding for the verification stage. If the pilot shows potential, we move forward. For example, if you've used our app, you might have noticed ads appearing on the screen when a car is found. That feature originated from an internal pitch. Today, the employee who pitched that idea has their own team within the organization. By 2025, this initiative will have its own objectives, budget, and planning. It will remain aligned with Uklon's overall goals, but will function as an independent department with its own analysts, developers, and vertical growth strategy. Another example is our work on Prime, a new product. Someone within the company proposed the idea observing that Kyiv, as the capital, has a demand for a premium class service with higher end vehicles. This person conducted surveys, analyzed the data, and determined there was a market and customers willing to pay for it. We validated the idea, partnered with car providers, ran a pilot, and launched the product. Now it's operational. The person who pitched the idea reports directly to the board, presents performance metrics, and explains their growth strategy. They lead their own department, which boosts their self esteem, compensation, and recognition. Everyone in the company knows that if they come up with a brilliant idea, they have the opportunity to pitch it and see it come to life.
That's amazing. It's a fantastic system, and you deserve a lot of respect for having such a great structure. Not every company can afford to nurture internal departments like this. What starts as a small idea or dream eventually becomes a full fledged feature, mini product, or even a complete product. It's great that you offer such opportunities.
The key is for the person to have the desire. We do everything we can to support them, invest, and help them to grow.
That's fantastic. Another interesting question. Are you planning to expand to other countries or are you focusing solely on Ukraine for now?
We are not only operating in Ukraine anymore. Last year we launched in Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan. In Uzbekistan, we are thriving already processing over a million orders per month. We are holding our own against Yandex, which to be fair has a strong product that in some ways is better than Bolt or Uber. That's the honest truth. Nevertheless, we are competing with our product and features they can't replicate. Focusing on quality, gradually we are carving out our space in the market. In Azerbaijan, however, we paused operations at the beginning of the summer. The primary reason was legal complications. The market there turned out to be quite challenging. Despite entering with the support of a local marketplace and having a strong product, it didn't protect us from the arbitrary actions of various organizations that assist businesses. We spent a lot of time trying to work with different authorities and find viable solutions, but eventually we got tired and decided it wasn't worth it. We might return to Azerbaijan later if they improve their legal and regulatory environment, making it more transparent and consistent. It's frustrating to operate in a place where one day you are working and the next you are shut down and you need to call the Minister of Transport to resolve the issue.
Sometimes it
One
happens.
of our strategic goals, as I mentioned earlier, is to become a strong international player. This remains a dream and a priority for us as co owners and the new management team driving the product's growth. We want to develop and expand to other markets, but not all at once. Right now, we are focused on the market we have left, Ukraine. It's a challenging environment, and we are heavily involved in supporting Ukraine and the armed forces. Once the situation improves, we'll be able to allocate more resources and funds toward entering international markets. For now, doing too many things simultaneously with our own funds is physically impossible. We also understand that sometimes you need to let things mature before scaling further. For now, doing too many things simultaneously with our own funds is
Exactly.
physically impossible. We also understand that sometimes you need to let things mature before scaling further. We must remain strong leaders in Ukraine and continue to support our country. When the opportunity arises, we'll move forward to international markets.
That's great. Let's wrap up this segment with a short question. Could you give a few tips on our startups on what nuances to consider when entering a new market?
This is a broad question, and the specifics will depend heavily on what your business does. In our case, the first priorities are the market and its potential. That includes factors like population size, population density, if we are talking about cities, and nowadays internet penetration, which is also crucial. For any product, the first things to focus on are legal and financial aspects. If you don't have a clear understanding of how to operate within the legal framework and jurisdiction of the market you are entering, then go there. From our own experience, we learned that what is written and officially considered the law isn't always upheld or enforced as such. It can be tricky. The key areas are legal and financial, ensuring your product's operational model remains viable and has the potential to generate profits within the legal framework. After all, startups and products ultimately boil down to business to making money. You need to understand how you will achieve break even and profitability in the specific market you are entering. Local financial and legal nuances have a significant impact on this. So don't be lazy or hesitant to invest in hiring good specialists who deeply understand the specific market you are entering. This is no joke. Getting it wrong can be painful.
Yes, thank you for that advice. I think it's essential. Even if someone is already aware of this, it never hurts to hear it again and ensure that these aspects are prioritized. It's great that we discussed this today.
This comes from experience. For an entrepreneur, experience is usually tied to their wallet. It's often expensive. If you have the opportunity to ask someone or verify things without spending as much, take that opportunity. It's a must.
Absolutely, I agree. Let's move on to the final, shorter segment of our interview, which we call Rapid Fire Questions. We will ask you short questions that we hope you will find fun. They won't all be work related, so let's have a bit fun. The first question is there a thought leader who inspires you?
As funny as it may sound, I used to be really inspired by Elon Musk. I read a lot about him and it genuinely made me happy. But now it seems like he has lost his mind a bit. So at the moment, I'd say it's not always a good idea to make someone your idol. It's worth learning about people, but we are all human and we change. He has surprised me lately. As a thought leader with so much influence, he seems to be doing things he thinks are right, but to me they appear quite strange.
Yes, that happens. What can you do? People change, and that's okay. Let's move on to the next question. What's your preferred way to relax, active or passive rest?
For me, it's active rest. My wife and family sometimes suffer because during peacetime, if we go on vacation after 3 days, I don't know what to do with myself. I insist that we start doing something, going for walks, taking tours, or finding other activities. because just lying around makes me feel like I'm stagnating. Everything starts to ache, and I feel like going back to work if there is nothing to do. Movement is life, so it's better to stay active.
So that's great because you're one of those people who can sit still. There are always two types of people on vacation. One says, "Today we just sit at the restaurant," and the other says, "Let's go on a tour, quickly see something, and feed in as much as possible." You're clearly the second type.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. After lying down for a bit, I plan everything out and drag everyone along, even if they are winning. I tell them, stop complaining, let's
Exactly.
go. Why
Here
just
is
lie
a
around?
next question. It's a bit interesting and meant to spark imagination. If you could choose a superpower for work, what would it be? Reading minds or controlling time?
Feeling like a hero from a TV series, I'd probably choose to control time. Reading minds is about the present, but controlling time allows you to observe reactions, influence them, and rewind or fast forward situations. It's a cool idea. You could make far fewer
Definitely,
mistakes
especially
if
at
you had
work.
such a
It's important
superpower.
because sometimes one wrong decision can mean a lot.
That's true in everything. Sometimes even a single second can make a difference. Just being able to control a single second, though it might seem insignificant, can change a lot.
Yes, absolutely. The next question is there a book that changed your life?
For me, there is not one specific book that I can say changed my life. I think every book you read changes you in some way. It's hard to pinpoint one that stands out. The more you read, the more you absorb, and you apply it to both your personal life and work. But you shouldn't overdo it. Sometimes people in your team might suffer because of ideas you fixated on from a book. It's also about experience, learning how to manage and implement those ideas carefully. Experimenting is necessary, but should be done without fanaticism. Try things out on a small task group that agrees to it, and then scale it across the organization. My general recommendation is to read widely. Another thing I realized as an adult is that you don't have to finish a book you don't enjoy. This is not school. No one is going to make me write a report or summarize something I didn't like. These days, I wouldn't read something just out of curiosity. In the past, I might have had to, but now, if I don't enjoy a book right away, I don't force myself to finish it. Not all books are good, and not all authors resonate with everyone. Even translations can sometimes be poor.
Exactly, that's true. Now we come to this question: what kind of study do you prefer? Is it self education or formal education?
Let's be honest here. I went through the full path. I have a master's degree and everything. In my opinion, having a solid foundation through formal education is essential, but it's not just about sitting through it. You actually need to learn. You need to gain some basic knowledge. From there, you can build a specialization. It's like with the doctors. They go through internships and then specialize further. If you are not in a field like medicine, you can enhance your specialization through self-education, especially in tech industry. where things change very quickly. A university should give you the foundation upon which you can build everything else. Learning a programming language or its syntax, for example, can take just a month. The real depth and nuance come from understanding the fundamentals. In business, it depends on the area you are focusing on. If you want to gain deep expertise based on experience, you start by getting a foundation from specialized institutions like a business school or courses offered by such schools. That's where you can dive into the details. You can also directly ask an instructor for guidance or continue with self education. But there is no silver bullet or magical solution. Things change very quickly, and you need to know which direction to explore, where to search, and where to dig deeper. So, having some formal education is a must. After that, if you want to excel in something, dedicate 10 minutes a day to it, and within a year, you'll know more about that subject than most people.
That's a great advice for sure. Reading a short article leaves an impression, and if you make it a habit to learn something new every day, you'll have learned a lot in a year. That's an excellent suggestion. The next question: what is a number one value for your team?
We have organizational values and missions. From one perspective, I'd say innovation is a top priority. We value anything new, whether it's ideas or technologies brought forward by employees. That's a key value for their organization. For me personally, based on the experiences we've been through, like COVID and the war, we faced all kinds of pressures, including external challenges. For me, among all our values, the most important one is the team. We believe in our people, we love our people, and we invest in our people. Ultimately, an organization is not its owner, it's the people who create it, sustain it, and shape its culture. For me, it's all about the team. You need to hold onto them because they are the living organism that forms any organization.
Absolutely. That's a great answer, and I think it's entirely true. The team is the main driving force and motivation. Without the team, nothing would exist. No product, no progress, no goals achieved. It's essential. Here is the next question: what advice would you give yourself at the start of your career?
That's a philosophical question, something you would discuss with a therapist. Honestly, one regret is that we didn't start looking for investors sooner. For example, Bolt began when its founder visited Kiev, used Uklon, and got inspired. His PR team won't let him say that anymore, but it's true. Quick action and access to affordable funding allow you to scale rapidly. There are nuances about the cost of obtaining that money, but it helps you scale your product and compete globally, or at least dominate your niche. So, I'd advise engaging with investments earlier. This ties into the earlier discussion about education. In my opinion, we lack financial literacy. Things might be changing now, but back then, we didn't understand how money works. what financial instruments are available, or how to use them. In Ukraine, the funding market is small, but even so, we didn't fully understand how to tap into it. Entrepreneurs need to educate themselves and deepen their knowledge about finances if they want to secure investments. Nowadays, even in Ukraine, you can find smaller funding rounds, but you need to understand the landscape. It would be great if universities offered minor programs that teach financial basics, how finances work and how to navigate them. That's something we are often missing.
Yes, that's very true. It's an important point. Let's move on to the key question. What's your advice to startups today? Maybe just one word or a phrase.
I have a strange word for it, ishachin. You know, like the hard-working donkey, ishak. Some people like or dislike me for this. If you are a startup founder, no one will care about your product as much as you do, at least not in the beginning. How much time, energy, and effort you invest in your product will determine how quickly it takes off. You need to work hard. The more you build and develop your product, the more the team quality and scalability will follow. But without putting in the effort, nothing will happen. Roll up your sleeves and get to work. And remember, it won't be easy. Things are only easy in the movies.
Absolutely.
In life, if you want to do this, you must dedicate your time, energy, learn, and work. That's how you will achieve
That's the
results.
only way to get great results. And it's true, confirmed by every entrepreneur who once started with just an idea. Thank you for this piece of advice. It's truly practical and we've already seen its value. Well, Vitaly, we are grateful that you gave us your time today. It was wonderful and a pleasure to talk with you. The questions from startups today were really interesting. Thank you all for your activity, for writing to us, and for showing your interest. We also invite you to join us for the next episodes of the UmiUp Startup Experience program. Don't forget to like the video, leave comments, share it with your friends and colleagues, and invite them to join as well. Once again, thank you for participating.
The questions were excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation. To wrap up, I'd like to add that at Uklon, we are very focused on developing our product ecosystem across various verticals to strengthen our super app. So if you have great ideas, please come to us. Uklon is open to external ideas, though we haven't seen any standout ones yet. We'll think about it, hear your pitch, and if it aligns, we can integrate your idea, making you part of the broader Uklon family, helping bring joy to people and solving their problems. Additionally, we've recently established a fund focused on meal tech and are looking for various startups working to enhance our country's defense capabilities across different areas. Pitch your ideas, reach out on LinkedIn. Myself and Uklon founders will always respond to your inquiries. We are interested in supporting various startups, whether it's Miltech or other sectors. We are ready to provide support, whether material or verbal, wherever it's needed.
That's great. So, participants, if you have amazing ideas that you like to share, we invite you to do so, and we will be thrilled if you succeed. This is fantastic opportunity. Thank you for sharing this information. Well, with that, it's time to wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.